Hello, dear Murnyashki, Naya is with you. Do you remember the werewolf mod called Howling Moon, which is very cool, but no longer updated? And we also dreamed that it would be adequately combined with vampirism, and also, so that all this was on the version of the main newer than 1.12.2. Well, I hasten to please you. Our cherished wish was fulfilled, because the developers of Vampirism took and created an add-in for their mod. It's called Werewolves, and it turned out to be very even on the level. Although no, it didn't work out, but it turns out, because in fact, it has just reached the alpha testing stage. However, even what I saw already inspires great hopes. And now I'm going to share my impressions with you. But first of all, for those who do not know what Octan is, I will explain that this is not a full-fledged mod, but in addition to it, therefore, keep in mind that you need to install it together with the Vampirism mod. And at the moment, we have an alpha version available for Minecraft 1.16.5. Octan adds us a whole new biome, several mobs, some items, but most importantly, the opportunity to become a werewolf, and, accordingly, develop our abilities as a werewolf, just as we fell for vampires and hunters. To do this, of course, you will have to conduct rituals. By the way, at the very beginning of the game, as always, you are given this little book of guidance. However, the information specifically on werewolves is presented very sparsely in it, so it's of little use so far. However, if you need it, and you have lost it for some reason, I remind you that its crafting consists of vampire fangs and an ordinary book. But let's talk about everything in order. First of all, a new biome. It's called Werewolf Paradise. The biome is quite picturesque. There are clean, transparent reservoirs and very beautiful trees. In particular, the two trees added by the mod are the jacaranda and the magic tree. Does it remind you of anything? That's right. They are very similar to similar trees from the BAM's Lenti fashion, but not to say that they are made completely under carbon paper. Personally, it seems to me that in the werewolf darkness, the magical trees are brighter, the jacaranda is purpler, the grass is turquoise, and the water is more transparent. In short, a wild paradise. Here you can meet various forms of werewolves. Wolf-like wild survivalists running on four paws, beasts walking on their hind legs, as well as werewolves in human form, although these latter are still more often found near villages. All of them, except those in human form, are aggressive towards players. But if you attack werewolf people walking peacefully, they will also get angry and take either the form of a wolf or the form of a beast. And I think you already understand what will happen next. Fortunately, human werewolves don't rush all together at the offender, so you only have to deal with one at a time. To become a werewolf, you need to be attacked by a werewolf. It's enough for him to scratch you so that you get an effect called a magnifying glass with sanguine. This will be clear from the pieces flying around you, and most importantly from the icon on the top right, this one with an eye. Like the vampire infection of the sanguinary, and this effect is neutralized if you drink a bucket of milk. But if the vampirus sanguinaries, we had to wait for one Minecraft day, then everything is somewhat different here. If you were very scared, and you decided that the morning of the evening is more complicated, and skipped the night on the crib, then everything is gone. In the morning, you will wake up as a werewolf, and milk will be powerless to fix anything. Therefore, you need to be treated before you go to bed. But if you decide to try on the skin of an animal, then go for it. The first thing we see when we become a werewolf is that nothing seems to have changed. At least, no message or score has come out. But in fact it is not. This is where we got fangs, and if you click on them, then we open a table of abilities in which we have the first level open. To become a werewolf, we can view our skills the same way we did it for vampires. If anyone has forgotten, here is a pop-up link to a video about vampires. Of course, this diagram is empty at the moment because there is no werewolf among us yet. However, something in our life has changed. Namely, from now on, ordinary human food is no good for us. Now we eat only meat and fish, raw or fried. True, we can also eat cakes, but you can forget about golden apples. Werewolves don't aggrandize on us anymore, none at all, at least until we attack them first. Looking ahead a little, I will say that in any form of a werewolf, you will receive a negative buff in the water, namely weakness, when you will be in an ordinary human form, and this will not apply to you. And you will also be forced to turn into a beast every full moon, unless, of course, you choose a special skill, but more on that later. All aggressive mobs will still attack you, including vampires. Vampire hunters won't touch you, but only until you turn around. In werewolf form, they will not stand on ceremony with you either. And by the way, you are now vulnerable to silver and monkshood. Well, now let's learn how to level up for a werewolf. First of all, you need to craft a stone altar or altar. It is done like this from 8 stone bricks. Next, you will need 4 stone altar lamps. They are also made of stone bricks, and it is necessary to add wooden boards. We install the altar in the center, and we put lamps around in a radius of 3 blocks. The lamps need to be lit with a regular lighter. After that, you will be able to look into the interface of the altar with the right mouse button, and there you will see the slots for sacrifice. Of these, the left slot is designed for livers, and the right one for cracked bones. Both fall out of werewolf mobs. That is, to get out, you will have to kill your own kind in batches. I know, it seemed strange to me too, but after thinking about it, I thought that probably the liver and bones of human animals are too tasty, and the werewolves are unable to control themselves and immediately eat them. Therefore, they fight for superiority with their own kind and sacrifice the livers and bones of their killed rivals. By the way, vampires can use livers as an alternative source of blood, and the bones can be converted to vanilla if you no longer need them. You can perform the sacrifice ceremony exclusively at night. By the way, you can interact with the altar only at night. That is, in advance. It will not work to put livers with bones in the afternoon. When you put the necessary items in the altar, you need to set it on fire and wait a little. At first, it may seem that nothing is happening, but in fact, small particles of ash begin to fly around you. And then it will darken in your eyes for a few seconds. You will only see the altar fire burning at the altar and the starry sky. After that, everything will clear up again. That's it. You have risen in level and can use your points to acquire abilities. By the way, so that you do not think that everything is too simple, keep in mind that you will not get off with 1 liver and 1 bone per level. I am attaching a sign to you. How many items are needed for each level? The maximum at the moment is still the 14th. Well, now let's call up the skill panel. This is done in the same way as for vampires and hunters, either through the fangs or by pressing the English Pi, Russian Z, and here we can choose the skills to our liking. Let's look at them all. So, the first thing we get by default is becoming a werewolf, which so far has only 1 name from the word. He can't transform. At the next level, an ability called the human form opens up to us. It seems, what kind of nonsense? We're already in human form. But in fact, this form is not quite human. If we look at ourselves from the third person, we will see a kind of ears on top of our heads. They don't fit well on our character and generally move separately from us. But I warned you that the mod is in development, right? So, as for werewolf forms, with any, the first is that you can always understand what form you are in now, normal or werewolf, by this brown fringe around the screen. I suppose it's your fur on the muzzle. Then your cursor turns into a toothy jaw. The toothy jaw works the same way as vampire fangs, that is, by pressing Latin and Russian M dot at the same time, you apply a bite. That is more powerful than a normal attack, and if you have certain skills, it can also give some effects. But unlike vampire cousins, werewolves have some pullback. So in between, you will have to fight with your hands or weapons. By the way, the human form of werewolves can hold weapons in their hands, but they absolutely cannot wear armor. If you were wearing something, it disappears, or rather ceases to be taken into account. As soon as you return to your original state, your missing armor will reappear on you. You can return to your normal human form if you re-invoke the same ability. You can easily maintain the shape of a perpertish, and regardless of what kind, only at night. And during the day, it is available only for a while. When you transform during the day, you have a timer, this red stripe, which gradually empties. As soon as it is completely empty, you will turn back into a person, whether you want it or not. When you are in human form, this timer gradually fills back up, and after a while, you will be able to turn into a werewolf again. In the biome called Werewolf Paradise, you do not depend on the time of day and can maintain the shape of a werewolf as much as you want. At the third level, we get the ability to see in the dark, but unlike vampires, who can switch their vision, werewolves get night vision automatically when they take any shape of a werewolf, including this pseudo-human with shoal ears. In ordinary human form, night vision does not work. Immediately after the third level, the werewolf has a division of skills into 3 branches. The average is suitable for those who want to keep as much humanity in themselves as possible. That is, such humanistic werewolves. The right one is suitable for those who want to be as close to nature as possible. Run and jump through the woods smartly. Survive in the wild environment, being a wolf. In short, the survivalists are naturals or naturalists. I don't even know what to call them better. Well, the left branch is for those who want to be a real beast and wants to tear and crumble everyone who turns up under the arm, or rather under the paw. In general, werewolves are rippers. Let's first consider the branch of naturals. At the 4th level, werewolves close to nature are asked to make a choice between 2 abilities, the 6th sense and the chuka. The 6th sense gives you a hint if some mob is targeting you. At the same time, your screen will flash with an orange frame around the edges. So even if you are approached from behind, say, by the same zombies or creeper, you will still understand in advance about the attack that is being prepared for you. This skill is passive and will work regardless of whether you are in human or animal form. Chuka, unlike the 6th sense, is an active skill, and it needs to be called from the socket of skills. When you turn on this skill, you can see mobs right through walls and even deep underground. Werewolf mobs will be highlighted yellow, vampires purple, hunters blue, undead white, animals and people, including werewolves in human form, red. By the way, creepers and endermen are also considered either animals or people. In any case, they are highlighted in red. This skill has a rollback, so you won't be able to use it often in a row. But the topic is actually useful. It works in any form, and it also works in ordinary human form. Then, on the 5th level in this branch, we can discover the very wolf form that will run on 4 legs. And there's not much to talk about, except that we can turn into such a cute top. By the way, it is not possible to switch from one werewolf form to another directly. To do this, you need to first take a human form and only then change. And it can be a little hard to do, especially on a full moon, when the moon itself forces you to maintain an animal appearance. To avoid this, I advise you to bind the ability to shift to the keys, just as we did it with vampire abilities. Let me remind you how this is done. In total, we can bind 2 abilities on the key. By default, this is a combination of Alt-1 and Alt-2 keys. To bind the ability, you need to drive into the command line first into Vampirism, then a space bar, and look for the command bind action. It's at the very top. Then again, a space and drive in the number 1. This means that the ability that you choose now will be tied to the Alt-1 keyboard shortcut. Then we put a space again, and this time scroll the mouse wheel to find the desired ability. In our case, all the necessary abilities begin with wolf. And we need this one, it's all-wival form. That is, the form of a straight survivalist, which turns us into a top. Why is it and not human? Because the human one is actually an unusual human one, and the one with crooked ears. Basically, you can put any form available to you. The point is, in order to transform back into a human, you need to reselect the same command that you used to transform into a werewolf. In principle, on a normal night, you can do this in the socket of skills, but on a full moon, the human form lasts only for a moment, during which you will not have time to change shape through the socket. But quickly click Alt-D and Alt-V will have time. Here's a little trick. And of course, the binding to the Alt-V key combination occurs in exactly the same way. Just in the place where we drove the number 1, you will need to put the number 2. At the 6th level of Naturals, you and I are again forced to choose either Wolf Paws or Speed. Speed is a passive skill. It will be set by default, and the greatest will be when you are in animal form. With Wolf Paws, in theory, you should not receive damage from cacti, thorny bushes and magma blocks, as well as receive reduced damage when falling, when you are in the form of a werewolf. However, so far it doesn't work. At least I was hurt, so we'll wait until they fix it. At the next level, we are given a choice to climb or jump. Climbing means that in the form of a wolf, you will easily jump over the blocks. In other words, it's almost like an auto jump, but without delay when bumping into a block. This skill is passive, but it works exclusively in wolf form. The jump should be assigned to a separate key, and it should be carried out at the moment when you press the jump button. However, it is quite difficult to perform. It will take a lot of practice. And the last skill in this branch is Movement Tactics. This skill gives you a chance to dodge an attack while sprinting in wolf form. Well, let's move on to the next branch, Humanists. The first thing Humanists learn is to howl. This skill must be called from the skill socket, and the howling itself is not heard yet, but it baffs your tribesmen, increasing their attack speed. This skill has a rollback, so it will have to wait for reuse. The next ability is called Wolf Pack, and it calls us 3 wolves who will guard us and fight for us. They are called by howling, but they don't run after you for a very long time, after which they disappear. And then in this branch we are invited to make a rather interesting choice, to get the opportunity to eat any food, not just meat. Or choose an ability called Water Lover, with which you will stop receiving negative effects from being in the water. And this choice may be very important, because from that moment, the branch of Humanists forked. If you choose the opportunity to eat normal human food, then the ability of Free will open up to you, which will save you from the curse of the full moon. And you will no longer turn into a werewolf on a full moon if you don't want to. And after that, you will be able to reduce the negative influence of silver on you, because you will open the ability of Silver Blood. But the cherry on the cake for you will be the opportunity to wear armor, which is not in any other branch. If you choose the love of swimming, then accelerated regeneration will be available to you. And completing this list is the ability to hide your nickname when you are in the form of a werewolf. That is, in theory, you can disguise yourself as a mob. Now we turn to the Ripper branch. The first ability available in it is called Rage. It resembles Vampire Rage. Similarly, for the duration of this skill, which, by the way, needs to be invoked from the socket of skills, the screen is framed by a red frame. It doesn't last long, and the damage you inflict increases significantly for the duration of the action. After the rage action has passed, a rollback occurs, but it's fast enough, so you'll be able to use this skill again pretty soon. Then another form of a werewolf opens up to you, a huge beast standing on its hind legs. Well, that is, like a huge one. Not mega super huge, but let's say big. In general, the model is quite beautiful. I don't know about you, but I personally like it. And after that, we will have to decide whether we want our skin to be stronger or to distribute more weighty pills. I know it's a difficult choice, but we'll have to decide something. After that, the choice is made again. This time it touches our teeth. We want our bite to stop the enemy for a couple of seconds, or for us to cause bleeding with our teeth. The next ability in this branch will allow us to regenerate our own health after killing, which, by the way, can be quite useful. In general, he bit someone, and he was cured. Well, this branch ends with another choice between two abilities. One of them is called the Gulp Seeker, and the second is Fear. The Throat Seeker is apparently trying to reach his victim's throat. And if she has less than a quarter of health left, then when attacked from behind, it will kill her instantly, regardless of the number of remaining hit points. But I personally like the second ability more. After all, attacking from the back is still a matter of trying. But Fear is a very useful ability. Unfortunately, it is not passive. It needs to be called from the socket of skills, and it only works when you are in the form of that very beast. Note, not the wolf, but the Ripper. But at the time of its action, everyone will run away from you, losing their sneakers. At least they should. But in fact, it only works for a second, after which a rollback follows. But I think in the future, this will improve, and the ability will work fully. If you have changed your mind about being a werewolf, then you need to take a syringe, approach any werewolf, and right-click on it. The werewolf won't get mad at you for this, even though you poked him with a needle. As a result, you will get a strange injection. It needs to be injected into yourself, using all the same armchair chaise longue that is usually in the house of the hunter-trainer. But it's not necessary to look for hunters. As you remember, it's being crafted, and if you don't remember, then follow that link over there and watch a video about vampire hunters. After using the injection, you will not stop being a werewolf in the same minute. We'll have to walk under the effect of the serum for a while. The Moth and Wolf also adds some items to us. We have seen bones and livers, but besides them, there are also silver, ore and its derivatives, ingots and blocks, as well as weapons, tools made of them, including crossbow bolts with silver tips. Their crafts are standard. There is also a beautiful flower monk's hood. It grows almost everywhere, and you can craft purple dye from it. But if you step on it, the effect will be a poop of silver, and silver, by the way, slows you down and reduces the protective properties of your skin. And regardless of whether you are in the form of a werewolf or a human, but considering that unlike the human form, you can't wear armor in the shape of a werewolf, then you need to be doubly careful. From the wood of the magic tree, you can make beautiful blue boards. But ordinary oak trees are obtained from geckos wood. Like vampires and hunters, werewolves are tied to a system of villages and totems. If you see a village with a yellow pillar knocked out of its totems, know that this village is under the rule of werewolves. Some of its inhabitants could easily turn out to be werewolves. That is, if you are not a werewolf and had the imprudence to smack them, then there is a risk that they will turn around, and everything will fly from you to shreds in the back streets. In addition, there is a werewolf expert walking around somewhere who sells werewolf-related goods, but it's still under development, so all it does is give 1 emerald for 4 blocks of silver. In short, he's still a grabber. In villages that do not belong to werewolves, golems, as well as vampire hunters, beat werewolves if they are not in human form. In werewolf villages, golems and werewolves do not aggrandize, and will not stand up for you, even if you are beaten by werewolves. If you look at the manual book, then in the section about werewolves, you will see an article called Lord. As the developer himself commented on this, the werewolf lord is something like the leader of the pack, but this mechanic is still only in the project, and it has not been fully decided how it will work. Well, since there are no such mechanics yet, then nothing has been written in the article, respectively. For those who like to dig into the settings, I strongly recommend looking into the config file. The mod was also pleased with the fact that it is quite well configured. But in this video we will not disassemble the configs, but we will look at them later, in one of the more or less significant updates. Well, that's all that, in general, is currently in fashion for Werewolves. If something remains unclear to you, or does not work, do not rush to throw slippers at me, but rather write in the comments under this video. As I said at the very beginning, the mod is still in a testing state, and will be finalized, so be patient. We will closely monitor its development. I think this mod has a very good potential. I really liked that the developers of Vampirism personally took up Werewolves, and now there is no need to worry that the mod will not work correctly with vampires. It's a pity that this auction is not expected for the version of Lane 112.2, but on the other hand, we still have a Howling Moon. Werewolf models in the fashion of Werewolves look quite interesting. Let's hope that someday we will be offered Werewolves of different colors. And what else would you like to see in this fashion? What advice or requests would you like to make to the developers? Write in the comments under this video, and I will definitely give them the most interesting ideas. I hope my review was interesting to you. If so, don't be too lazy to put your finger up, because I tried very hard. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet, and look into my contact group. Well, that's it for today. See you soon, dear Murnyashki. Bye-bye.